Larry Krystkowiak joins us, Utah head coach, 9 years as a player in the NBA, 7 straight winning seasons now for the Utes. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. I know my last name is Fenley, and you have a Fenley, so that's pretty close. Nice little coincidence there. And I see all the guitars behind you. I know you're an avid player. Have you ever played in front of your team?
No, it's kind of like singing in the shower, Bryan. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, although I'm practicing with some of the free time we've had. I do think I'm improving, and someday maybe we can put them through that.
When you feel the confidence, do you ever play and sing at the same time and feel the urge to break out in song?
I know that's another complicating facet to the whole thing, but I've never been much of a singer. I've tried a few Johnny Cash songs.
Okay.
That's somewhat of an easier voice for me. And first things first, brother, got to get the guitar part of it down.
You're going to get there. Why do people say you are a better college and pro player than a high school player?
Oh, I was pretty average, I think, in high school. I was tall. I don't know about average, maybe slightly above average, but, and then you move up one level. We've always talked about that with our guys. When you jump up from college or from high school to college, that's a significant step. And it certainly brings a lot of things into focus. You've got a lot of like-minded guys, and I really liked the college experience. And I thought, Coach Montgomery, who I played for 4 years there, and Stu Morrill was an assistant coach who was the big man coach. And those guys just instilled a lot of confidence in me and work ethic. And then you get a little bit of a taste of it. I played some summers on the I was in U.S. teams. And so, I didn't hit a point and then taper off. I thought I really started making some strides early in college and then later in college, and kind of reached my potential a little later, and probably the proverbial late bloomer concept of that. I grew really fast and needed to put some weight on. I think strength, putting some weight on in the weight room really made me a better player too, and gaining some confidence to be able to knock some people around a little bit.
What was the hoop you got the most work on growing up in Montana? Where was
Oh,
it?
it's still there.
Wow.
I grew up on the west side of Great Falls, Montana. We grew up in a mobile home, and right across the street was the Forrester residence, Mark Forrester, who I just reached out to, spoke with him. I guess it was coincidentally around the holidays, so just before all the COVID stuff. And
Sure.
Every time I've gone back to Great Falls, I drive there, and that court was one of the smoothest, well done concrete slabs that I've ever seen. Not many of them are still hanging around. I don't know that it has a crack in it, and it's
Wow.
that was in the early 70s. So really lucky, and grew up in a neighborhood with a bunch of athletes. Older kids were in high school teams, and so there was just kind of that DNA in our neighborhood, and found myself over there after my morning cereal on Saturday morning and watching cartoons, hitting up the court from dawn to dusk, and loving every minute of it. I just really loved it. It was never work for me.
Wow. Where did you get your edge? Like, I can see it as a player, but then how did you morph that into the edge you have as a coach?
Well, I just think we're always kind of products of the people we're around. And, I kind of look at it as though I went to school for a lot of years. I went to school for 4 years at Montana and learned from some great coaches. And then I was fortunate to go on a 10-year MBA program. And obviously it's all hoops there, and so you're kind of a byproduct of the people that you learn from and the people that coach you. A lot of times those guys were father figures in a certain regard for me, and paid attention to stuff that they did and implemented. And have so much respect for him. So I don't know that I feel like I personally have an edge. I just think I was able to be around some really great coaches, and I feel that we can communicate that. I've got the ability to communicate a lot of that stuff to players, and I don't think it's overly complicated, but we try to do things the right way and do it while we're treating people right. And hopefully it's an edge. But this game is so much more about players than it is coaching. So you just try to point them in the right direction, and been fortunate to coach a bunch of great kids.
And you've been fortunate to play with a lot of great players. Kobe Bryant, obviously, you had that stint with the Lakers. I'm sure you've been asked this a lot, Coach, but what's something about that experience where you two overlapped that you hold so important to your heart to this day?
Yeah, I think the timing for that was very interesting. I was, pretty much retired and done with the hoops. Del Harris was the Laker coach at the time, who was a dear friend and was the coach of mine at Milwaukee with the Bucks for 5 years. And the Lakers had some injuries, and I got back from my honeymoon with my wife and sent a text message out to Del and said, "Hey, I noticed, you've got a number of guys injured. I think Robert Horry was injured and Shaq was injured. And if you need a big guy, I'd love to come in." And within an hour, I think I was booked for a plane and went and jumped in with the Lakers. So I was at the other end of my life cycle. As a player at that point, and I was fortunate to step into a program, into a franchise that they had, here's Kobe Bryant, who was just stepping into it. And I can remember a handful of games that probably 2 or 3 games, I remember looking at the stat sheet, and there was only 2 guys that got the dreaded DNPCD, which was the did not play coach's decision.
Yeah.
And it was me and Kobe. And so I don't think a lot of people remember that, Kobe's rookie season wasn't the way a lot of people probably thought it was. And so it was a little bit hard for him. And I tried to help him, as best as I could, and just was there as a voice. I think there was a lot of frustration. But to me, more than anything, it just completely put in my mind what we preach now with our guys, is that it's a process. It's not instant gratification, and it's not just going to happen overnight, but you really got to put some time in. You got to earn it. You probably got to pay your dues and have some pretty dark moments. And Kobe ends up, being one of the best players that's ever played the game, with an incredible spirit about him. So just being able to witness that when things weren't, at their peak for him, I think was an important takeaway personally for me.
So character building. And yeah, I remember him calling out Del Harris, and now, I think they were able to amend their differences over the years. But yeah, like you said, I mean, Kobe was frustrated with the lack of playing time when he first joined the Lakers. And here you are seeing this. As far as your guys, Coach, you've had some great recruiting classes coming in recently, such a young team. How do you get all those guys to listen? They're young. They come from different backgrounds and different egos, but they look at you, and how do you get the most out of these guys?
Yeah, I think it's important, to try to find an individual connection with guys. It's maybe in years past, it's a little more old school, where you just kind of expect everybody to adapt to you. And I think the game has changed, and it's more relationship built. And I think that's important for us in college. So you have to be there with your guys and go through some hardships and be an ear for them to share things with you, to get a little bit more of an intimate relationship, so that when you're out on the basketball court and sparks are flying and bullets are going overhead, that you've been in some trenches and some other situations. I think so much of it's trust.
Sure.
And so, that's what we do. We just try to get closer to our guys. I know I've improved in that area over the years, and you have to kind of evolve with the times. And
sure.
We and the other thing I think, Bryan, that we try to do is you try to tell the truth. We don't we don't get caught up in politics and trying to tell people what they want to hear. And I think we've got a pretty good idea what's real. And so when we share that with guys, sometimes it's not always easy for them to hear it because maybe they haven't heard it much. But I think in order to get the most out of people, they've got to be willing to deal with some the realities of situations. And then I think probably on the second part of that would be some role establishment and making sure everybody understands what they need to bring to the table. So everybody's got a vested interest in what you're trying to do. You can't have a team full of stars and everybody brings a little something different to the table. And I think when you reward that, you talk about that builds a lot of the team culture that we're looking for.
Larry Krystkowiak joins us, Utah head coach. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. One of those stars that you do have on your team coming back for his junior year, Timmy Allen, and a guy who, looked and got his, I guess, draft analysis, if you will, and came back, your team's leading scorer and rebounder from a season ago. What sort of feedback did he get that he told you he received that can help him as he now readies for his third year with you guys?
Yeah, I think, it's been an unusual season for a lot of those guys. The feedback hasn't been there. The live workouts haven't been presented maybe as they would in years past. And, Timmy's worked incredibly hard this summer on his three-point shooting. That's one of the areas that everybody that I talked to, he was deficient in. He wasn't consistent enough with the perimeter shot. And then I think he's getting back to a little bit of, the junkyard dog that he had to him from the defensive side of the floor. We expected him to do so much, and he did so much and played a lot of minutes for our team. And I can remember myself as a player maybe not exerting the same amount of energy you needed on the defensive end because so much was expected from me on the offensive end. And so I think that's one area that he's got to really make some strides in, is where because he can play at the next level, but he's got to get back to that stopper mentality, and he's got the ability to guard a number of positions. And so that's one of the areas, is to continue to evolve as an offensive player, but make sure we get back. As you see, there's so many players in the NBA that maybe aren't ultra talented, but they're really good defensively, will take on some challenges and then can hit open shots when they're presented to them. So I think that's one of the big things. And then Timmy, I know Timmy, he's pulling into town tomorrow. He's driving from Phoenix, and he's really excited and kind of tapping into the leadership stuff. We've expected him to do that, but some of that's come maybe before it probably should have.
Okay.
I think some of that gets thrust on a young man when they're a freshman and sophomore, that, it sounds really good with the young team that you're going to put that on his shoulders, but he wasn't always equipped to do it. So we're going to help him navigate his way. And now he's been with us for a couple of years. I think he's matured and understands a lot of the elements that go into it. And we're going to expect an awful lot of him from a leadership point of view. And we're going to get him involved with some coaching groups and coaching meetings and get input. So he's got a bright future, and we're excited to have him back for his junior year.
It looks like Rylan Jones has a bright future as well. Where did he get that bulldog attitude from?
Well, I think his folks are real similar. Both his mom and dad. His dad's on our staff, director of basketball ops with us, and they're grinders. Mom and dad are they're going to work and put in time. And Rylan, I think, has always played with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and he brings a lot of toughness and grit to a game. And I think a year ago he probably looked a little bit more like a young high school kid. Now he's put on 15 legitimate pounds. His body's changed, and I think he's got a little more body armor to deal with some of the rigors that Pac-12 play brings. He spent a lot of last year injured, so it's going to be nice to get him back more in a healthy, full speed mentality. And he's just a great kid. He takes charges and dives on the floor, and he's always trying to make his teammates better. And some of that stuff's really hard to coach. So some of that moxie and savvy are key to our success.
it seemed like Alfonso Plummer started to display some of that moxie and savviness towards the end of last season. He had that 11 three-ball game, and I believe now, Coach, he heads into his senior year. And, he's matured a lot. You've been open about that, and now that you're seeing this out of him, where do you sort of put him as far as where he's going to fit and how he's going to grow as a senior and his role on this team?
Well, Fonz was great. I mean, very much of a roller coaster ride his first year. Junior college transition to Pac-12 play is not always easy, but he stayed the course. He kept his temperament, and his attitude has just been awesome. And there was a lot of communication between us throughout the process. And I really thought the last month of the season, things changed pretty dramatically for him. And he's going to be, thrust into some primetime minutes. He's those threes add up so fast, and he's got some deep range, and he plays with a lot of confidence. And I think he's a very willing passer as well. He can make plays, which he didn't do a lot of last year, but we saw it in practice. And defensively, he's tough as nails too. So he's going to be our only senior on our roster, and he's actually going to roll into town tomorrow as well, Friday, and get through the COVID process, and then we'll have him back on the court too. So he's an easy kid to cheer for because he could have taken a wrong turn last year with some of the adversity that he faced, and I thought it was one of the best ending stories for our squad.
I think one of the best stories over your tenure at Utah has to be the play of Delon Wright, one of the top guys that you've seen filter through your program. What was the process like of tracking him down from JUCO and then to see him flourish the way he did with you?
Yeah, no, that was, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
Yeah.
Coach Slocum was with us at the time and did a good job building a relationship with Delon, and I was actively involved with it too. And, to be honest with you, we didn't quite know the gem that we got until he showed up to campus. And I think his older brother, Darrell, played in the NBA, and Delon had been in a lot of games, pickup games, summer league stuff, had been putting himself up against some great competition. And, I really thought the system that we ran, and we put him in positions to be successful, and his practice habits changed 100%, 180 degrees. Didn't always practice hard. And then in the discussions after his junior year to his senior year, he became our hardest working player. Wow. Got his degree, finished everything up, and just, was tremendous. Really learned how to handle all of his business. And that was a kid that wouldn't say 3 words in the first month. Wow. Even when you were trying to get him to open up. He was very shy and introverted. And now he's just a completely different kid, lights up a room, and, really is a great communicator. And he's super proud of having played at Utah. Last season, he came into town to play somebody, and we went to dinner, and then he went with me to watch one of my sons play a high school game, which lit up the whole gym for all those kids. And
oh my gosh.
He's just remained really humble. And, we're really proud of he and Jakob Pertl and Kyle Kuzma. We had 3 straight guys, first round picks, and they all had a different story, but they're, terrific young men. And it's fun to sit back now and watch those guys do their thing in the bubble.
Yeah, I was going to say, and this is my last question for you, Coach, because I know you're busy, and I'm so grateful and really appreciate your time, is when you see Kuz, and you see Wright and all these guys, what not only are your impressions of their play, but also the whole setup of the bubble? How closely have you monitored how things are going over there?
Yeah, really haven't. I'm just excited to be able to watch some games. And I know the NBA has spent an awful lot of money, and it's an important opportunity for those guys to continue with their craft. And I think the timing with a lot of our racial and social issues is good. It gives, there's a live platform for guys to make difference and make change. So there's been some texts with those guys. We watch what they're doing, but also, really conscientious of their time and distractions and things, and they got to get there and do their work. And I think it's good for. There's just not much sports. You can only watch so much cornhole and so much golf. So
Yeah.
it's proud times, and we'll have our players over and our coaching staff over. We're going to try to get everybody cleared from the COVID and have a little
Sure.
social distancing barbecue here, and maybe we catch. The other night we watched Delon play against Coos in a game, so
Nice.
we catch certain games like that, and it's fun to be a part of those guys. Reaching their dream. That's one of the most rewarding parts of it. And you don't have to be in the NBA for us to be proud of you, because there's a lot of guys in our program that are kicking butt with various things too. But just knowing, at one point that was their goal and their dream when you asked them in the recruiting process, and then they believed in you to help them get there, and now they're there, and it's about as special a deal as we can experience as a college coach.
Larry Krystkowiak, one of the best interviewees, one of the best
Ah,
coaches, and it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I'm Bryan Fenley. Thank you, Larry, so much, and I'm
yes, sir.
super stoked to see everything you're going to put together this season and all the talent that you have all around you.
Thank you, Bryan. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.